Welcome, friends, to another special edition of the DF Retro Q&A. Here, we answer your questions. And I don't do it alone. No, I say welcome, friends. I'm joined by my other friend, Audie Sorley. And I'm acting crazy. I don't know. It's just how it happens here.
Yeah, I guess it's the special ASMR version of Q&A. I don't know why I just stepped into, but
I just caught a glance. I just looked at my copy of House of the Dead 2 out of the corner of my eye, and I was thinking about...
that would get anyone riled up.
Goldman!
Oh, yeah, Goldman. I do remember the voice acting was fantastic in that. But yeah, this is actually...
exceptional.
Is this our first Q&A of the year?
Absolutely,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a prediction here. We're going to do...
Is this our first video of the year?
Bleep. I didn't realize that, but you're right. So, yeah, let's... we have an agreement to answer everyone's biggest question. We are going to do about 2 videos per month moving forward for the Patreon. So, I guess this is the first one. And then what else will come after that, we'll figure out. But, yeah, it's good to be back, isn't it? Q&A, that's always fun.
Yes, that's a good way to kick things off. And what better way to start off than with a question from PS Triple Inquisition, who says, I have to say it, hey guys, with Arzette being a hit, have you thought about tackling some other infamous games? Like, how about a spiritual successor to Slam City with Scottie Pippen? Sounds like a winner.
Okay, let's define this question. Are they talking about us developing, or are they talking about us covering it?
I think developing it.
Developing.
And I think that's a tricky one because, man, the thing about Arzette is that, you know, that kind of started because of Seth specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's his game primarily, right?
Yeah.
And he's the guy that did the Zelda remakes, the CDI Zelda remakes. So, like, it was a perfect fit. To just run into some other genre or something like that, like, I feel like it's such a difficult line to cross, and I'm so impressed with how Arzette turned out, where it took itself seriously, but it had this like nice tip of the hat to the old games. That's really hard to do. You really have to commit to the bit in a very specific way, right?
Yeah, and I think committing to the bit is kind of, you know, the thing was for Arzette, you, me, and Seth didn't want it to be a bit. We wanted to make the game. We basically, I mean, when it boils down to it, we wanted to make a Saturn game. We wanted to make basically a game that could have happened in some fashion on Saturn. Of course, it wouldn't have been as high res and all these things, but gameplay-wise and just kind of, you know, this tech scope of it was 1632-bit, and then that was our technical limitation that we kind of adhered to. So, an FMV game, I'm sure we could. I will say, the 3 of us are not done as developers, and CDI software will absolutely continue thanks to the success of Arzette. And who knows what's next? I would be hesitant to jump into doing something based on like an FMV game like that. I think I'm reading this question as an FMV question because Slam City with Scottie Pippen was the digital pictures basketball game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
I mean, there's some interesting like developments in that space, though.
There is.
Like, for instance, if you've played the Seventh Guest VR, the recent re-release.
Yeah. I've seen it. I can't play VR games, but I've seen it.
They have these like voxelized takes on FMV characters, so it's actually like a 3D model, but it has like projected FMV in it. It's really weirdly convincing, and I kind of wanted to see that expanded. But even then, it's still based on the performance of a person, and I don't think it's really possible to make that compelling of a game with that. So that's a problem. But then there's the other problem of something like, you know, there was like a follow up to Shaq Fu, wasn't there?
Oh yeah, Shaq Fu too.
And
it was not great, was it?
It was not. No, it missed some, and also things like there was the Shut Up and Jam Gaiden, which...
So that came... Yeah, that was a fan game, and then I believe I played a sequel at GDC many years ago, and I don't think it ever came out. I think what you run into with stuff like that, especially Shaq Fu 2, is this self-indulgent kind of... You remember our rule for Arzette was, like, never break the fourth wall and tell people, right, isn't this funny? Isn't this stupid? Like,
you can't do that.
No, that's not funny. Sincerity is funny. And
exactly.
Yeah, so games like that I find cynical. They're just kind of like... And I think customers and consumers very quickly pick up on that. If the game starts saying, isn't this all a joke? It's like, yeah, I'm not too happy spending my money on a joke. So there's a sincerity that has to come with all this. I think when we sit down to do another project, it will probably be something that's not super unexpected from us, but at the same time, we want to do our own take on that type of genre. And FMV games is not necessarily one which I find super familiar with, at least you and I.
Yeah, and that's a whole... Nope, I don't feel like it's really been cracked. Certainly not for an action-based thing, like playing basketball. Like, it just doesn't... It was funny. It's interesting, but it's not really that good. I actually think Digital Pictures got close to making something decent with Maximum Surge, which that's a whole nother can of worms. That demo was pretty all right, though. Yeah,
and then you have like Mega Race, which puts gameplay into FMV. Okay, let's make a curling game in FMV. You just you send that thing down. You just have this bitmap curling stick.
I think there's two ways to do Slam City with Scottie Pippen. One is you have FMVs, but it's not the gameplay. Mm-hmm. And you have like an NBA Jam like experience that's finely tuned, mm-hmm, but in between matches you have like FMV sequences, possibly with dialogue choices, where you're interacting with these guys. And I think that could be fun. Or you go for the larger scope thing where you're actually trying to tell a serious story. Like, you think back to like that early 90s kind of Boys in the Hood style,
right,
like vibe, but maybe, following someone up into the NBA. But like, I guess it's street basketball really. But, even though Scottie Pippen is like an NBA player, it's the whole concept of Slam City is super weird.
Well, I wonder if they also confused this game, because this has happened. A lot of people confuse Slam City with Scottie Pippen with Chaos in the Windy City, is it? The Michael Jordan game on Super Nintendo.
Michael Jordan game. Oh yeah, I have a copy of that.
Yeah, which is not a bad game. I mean, it's okay.
It's a weird, but it's acceptable.
And I wonder if that's maybe what they're referring to, because that's something where, again, like, yeah, that's a platformer with basketball mechanics and like a famous...
Maybe. I suspect he really is referring to Slam City, but just doesn't. But it's just not. It's such a tricky thing. But maybe we've gone too deep down this rabbit hole.
Yeah,
I don't think we're gonna do a spiritual successor to Slam City with Scottie Pippen.
But you can be sure that CDI Software will continue to develop games which have a strong influence in games that we often highlight. That's probably going to be Kater 2. And Pyramid Adventures 2. We'll make sure Rich is in all of them. So he was slated for a role in Arzette.
I know there was a role and it just didn't happen.
We couldn't. Yeah, that was kind of like a time issue and stuff like that. So, but we have an earmarked for the future.
Indeed, but all right.
He is on Plumbers though. If you buy Plumbers Thrower Ties, he is on the back of that box.
Yeah, exactly. But all right.
Yeah.
Next up comes from Henry Clark, who says, I know John is a big fan of games that make movement feel good. I loved your 2022 best games list that was mostly based around this. I fell in love with Neon White because of it. Heck yeah, love Neon White. Do you have any suggestions for PS2 games that have sublime feeling of control? Outside of that, what are the best games that are still either stuck on PS2 or play considerably better there than their contemporaries or newer ported versions? Even though I had one in the era, I was never the biggest PS2 fan, and I'm trying to go back and give it a shot.
Wow.
Oh,
that's
an interesting
let's start with the first part. Like, good controlling.
Good. like good movement.
Yeah, good movement on PS2. Like
one of the first ones that come to mind for some reason for me is like I remember Chain Dive.
Oh yeah.
Because it's kind of like this, like it's almost like I don't. It always felt like a weird futuristic version of Nights into Dreams somehow.
Somewhat,
like I don't know.
Yeah, great music from Technouchi on that game.
Yeah. That's a really cool game with a nice vibe to it that feels great.
Yeah.
You know, character movement during that era, it is a little bit odd though to think about.
Yeah.
There's not that many PS2 specific games that spring to mind. I'm kind of looking at my list here.
So I would put up a couple. So one that I really like the movement of is a wrestling game that was stuck in Japan called All Star Pro Wrestling 3. It's a Square Enix wrestling game.
Oh, right, I remember that.
It has like insanely good mocap and animation tech. So like it looks super fluid. The controls are pretty fluid. It's like bow sticks, and I always wish that the way that animation system links up a lot of the moves and movement was kind of continued on PS3 and on, but it stopped with 3 on PS2. And I'd also say, do you remember the Jet Li game, Rise to Honor?
Rise to Honor, yeah.
So that has like dual stick movement, and it's clunky at first, but once you learn how to use it, it's really smooth. Like the difficulty curve of getting it is a little bit high, but once you get it, it is a pretty satisfying controlling game. It gets lumped with that Nina Williams game, the Death by Degrees, a lot, but Death by Degrees is much more clunky and stiff. The Jet Li game does it better.
I agree. The Jet Li game's pretty solid in that regard.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Can't deny it.
Yeah. So those two,
I
would definitely put on that list.
Man, I mean, I would still say something like Jak and Daxter, like the original.
Nothing wrong with that.
It has a really satisfying feel to it, just like moving through the world.
Yeah.
Also, Ape Escape 3 is a fun one. I like moving around in Ape Escape. Oh, the Maximo games.
Yeah.
It's not so much skilled movement, but like just the animation and the feeling of playing them. They're very precise, ultra challenging games, but they feel fantastic to play, I think.
Yeah.
They did an awesome job there.
Urban Reign is pretty nice.
That's not too bad.
I mean,
that's right.
It's closed in, right? It's all like Final Fight-ish, but
right.
Again, like it has a really smooth control system and great animation.
I also like, weirdly enough, the 3D Castlevania games on there.
Yeah.
I feel like just running through the worlds, because the worlds themselves are kind of boring in those games, but like actually running and fighting feels kind of good to me.
Yeah.
Same with the original Dragon Dragoon or Drakengard.
Drakengard, yeah.
Like the normal animation when running around the field kind of feels interesting and good from what I remember. It's been a while since I played it, but that stands out. But really, I mean, it's more like vehicle-based games, and that kind of, for me, and that kind of gets to like games that are stuck on PS2 or play considerably better there. Well, I mean, I would say, like I mentioned, Ape Escape.
Yeah.
I think those Ape Escape 2, I think, got sort of that HD, the emulated treatment, but Ape Escape 3, I don't believe did.
Not familiar.
That's not Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter.
Oh yeah, the fourth one.
Which is the fifth one.
Oh, it's the fifth one. Yeah, 4 is on
it is the
PS1.
fifth one. Yeah. Which is also, I like all of them, but I really think Dragon Quarter is one of the most engaging and creative sorts of strategy. Like, it's kind of like a weird pseudo strategy RPG in a way, but it's like very creative, and it has roguelike elements at a time when that was still pretty uncommon. Let's see here. I like it's the Adventures of Cookie and Cream in the US, but I also just randomly received a Kuri Mix, a new sealed copy of the Japanese version today, which is a dual stick platforming puzzle game where the screen is divided in half and you control one character with the left stick and another character with the right stick, and you got to platform through these levels and help each other out by doing something on, say, the left side, which opens up a gate on the right side, and then vice versa. And it's by From Software, and is really, really cool.
Yes.
The Dark Cloud games, especially Dark Cloud 2, Dark Chronicle, I think.
Yeah.
I think Dark Chronicle is awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of games that are stuck on PS2 that could probably make this list, right? So
Shadow Heart series.
Yeah. I never really played them. There's a new spiritual successor.
2 is incredible.
Yeah.
And 3 is pretty good.
Yeah.
1 is a bit hard to get into. It feels very PS1.
That's based on Kudelka, right? It's the same world.
It's sort of derived from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shadow Hearts 2 was amazing. I love the heck out of that.
I need to sit down with that a little bit. I mean, obviously, you and I would be lynched for not mentioning Flipnik. Flipnik should be.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I'm scrolling through my list alphabetically right now.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Flipnik is almost there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm dragging up here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that also brings up Eternal Ring.
Yeah, that first.
I would say Eternal Ring and the Kingsfield game from Software. I think they're both actually excellent. I would even say I really like Evergrace 1, even though it's deeply flawed. I think it's cool. It's such a weird game. I didn't like the sequel, but I love Evergrace 1. Also, Fatal Frame 3, I think, never got released off of the PS2.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, that would be one. So.
And that's a good one. The Grandia games that shipped on PS2, both Grandia Extreme, which is a very different kind of thing, and then Grandia 3. I really like it, especially 3. I love 3.
I think it
never went anywhere. It's on PS2 and it ain't moving.
I think a big one for me in terms of not being available is it's one that I tried to kind of get you and I to play, but we haven't had the time yet. It's Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks.
All right, you keep talking. Yeah, because I mistakenly picked up a PAL version of that.
Well, mistakenly, not so much. We found it.
No, I intentionally bought it, but then
we discovered it was censored with like blurring. It was really strange.
It's super censored well, it's like the German version.
The German version specifically, because that game is
ultra censored.
You know, we've gotten a ton of requests for it too. It's like one of the best co-op games on PS2. So, and there's been tons of demand to remake it and hints at it and all this, but still stuck on Xbox and PS2. So that would be a big one I think people would like to bring back. And I would love for it to come back. It runs pretty well, though. Well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the version that's on Xbox or PlayStation, but it would be nice just to have it available again. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Another one that springs to mind that's really near and dear to my heart is Gradius 5.
Yeah.
Which, as I heard from the developer of Alesta Branch, Yamanaka-san, that game would not exist without Gradius 5. Because he lost all faith in like shooter genres and almost video games in general back around that time. And then a friend of his gave him a copy of Gradius 5, said, you need to play this. And he liked it so much that it actually kind of pushed him to pursue game development.
Wow.
And get all the way back into games. So that game, but it was also something I absolutely loved, and it's stuck on PS2. I mean, it's awesome on PS2. Don't get me wrong; it's full 60 FPS. It looks beautiful. It's just never got ported anywhere.
You know what else is stuck on PS2?
What's that?
Streetwire. Never gonna see that on any other console.
But what even is this thing? It looks terrible.
Buckle up, son. We're gonna take to the streets.
I don't know. I don't know what else to say. You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong. I am 100% right.
Pretty sure you're not going to see that on any other console. But boy, oh man, if I can clean the toilet here a little bit. We mentioned the Maximo games.
Yeah.
Those are on PS2. The Mark of Kree, I love that. The Xenosaga games.
I was gonna say Xenosaga. Yeah. Yeah, there's the aforementioned All-Star Pro Wrestling.
Also 3. Neo Contra and Contra Shattered Soldier.
Yeah, you're right.
Both again locked to PS2.
Yeah.
Man.
There's
wow, still going through here. The Zettai Zetsume Toshi series, like Raw Danger and all that.
I'm surprised those haven't been some, like, because they're like, they always sell okay. Like,
yeah, and the series continued after the fact, but then those games stuck there.
Yeah. So.
Also, R-Type Finals stuck there.
Yeah.
Ridge Racer 5, one of my favorite games ever. No, like it's just.
Yeah.
I would love to see a cleaned up, non-jaggy version of that. There's the Sega Shinobi games on there, which were amazing.
Bujingai.
Oh, absolutely, Bujingai completely rules. The Siren games, Sky Gunner, Shadow of Memories. Although that got a PSP port.
Siren is another one that's surprising.
Yeah.
That like, no movement on that. There was that PS3 one.
Yeah.
And I think that was the last one. So.
That's right. And the best Siren game, which is Siren 2, never even got a US release.
That's right. It's in Europe. I have the European release of it.
It's awesome. Love that game.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
I think really so. God, I mean,
there's so
really,
much.
Could literally just keep going like for so long.
This answer just showcases two things, right? It's like, one, we don't have enough access to these wonderful games from the era, and two, man, Sony really, the diversity of their output on their console is not the same as it used to be.
It's time to move on. Let's go to Slam Vanderhuge, which is holy shit, that's a good name. Slam Vanderhuge. That feels like a name in like a fighting game or something.
That's the bad guy in some sort of Jean-Claude Van Damme sequel.
Absolutely. Anyway, sup boys, Joe from Jersey here. What's your favorite obscure Sega arcade title that never made its way home? They've abandoned so many bangers, especially from their model Naomi days, that seemingly no interest in showcasing them again. One of my favorites is Wild Riders, a Naomi motorcycle title. It's like a cross between Pepsi Man and Outrun.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Takes some... Yeah. Dude, that game's fucking nuts. Oh, pardon my French.
We'll believe it.
That's a hilarious game. The one that comes to mind for me is actually Planet Harriers.
I was going to say the exact same game.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I love Planet Harriers. It's I only got to experience it like a few.
I played it once.
Rare times.
Yeah.
And it's so uncommon.
Yeah.
And man, it's cool.
Yep.
And it just never came home. Never even. I never really see anybody even talk about it
until recently. I think the big answer here would have been Daytona 2, but that's in Yakuza, right? I mean,
that's in the one the man with no name thing.
It's not my favorite way of making these titles available again, but I do. No. I still obviously, understand that this is the way it's now available at home. So Daytona 2 is now available at home. But yeah, Planet Harriers is the one I was gonna say, and then there's those newer Daytonas as well that we played a little bit.
There's two games I also remember from the Naomi kind of and the Chihiro era and Hikaru era. First of all, and our local mall actually had this, but it was Brave Firefighters.
Okay.
The firefighting game, where you literally had a giant, hose kind of. It was like a light gun game, but it was you use a hose, and like I found it really interesting and fun at the time, and it felt satisfying to sort of put those flames out, right? That stream of water.
Yeah. Did
you ever actually play that machine?
No, we've talked about it before. I've seen it, but I never played it myself. But it looks fun.
The other one that always gets ignored somehow is the Episode 1 Racer that Sega did, the pod racing game for arcade, right. Which is 100% different than the home version and like a million times better. They integrated the actual pod style controls. Right. They got a big boost button in the middle, and it just felt incredible to play that at the time. It was so fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you can count Sammy as like Sammy Sega, there's Dolphin Blue.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Yeah. I freaking love Dolphin Blue.
Yeah, I think is that Thomas Ware or is that Naomi?
It's a Thomas Ware.
Okay, yeah. So
which is
same era, but yeah. So. But yeah, I think those are the kind of standouts for us at the moment. There's probably way more obscure stuff that...
I mean, like, I've been fortunate enough to experience, I don't know if it would go home except for on any, like, the 3DS, but the Holocene.
Yeah, Holocene.
And there's, like, the time-traveling one. That's the one I played. There's like a fighting game and then the time traveling.
Yeah, the fighting one I played actually when I was a kid at a traveling, fairs with the arcade stuff. One year they had that Holocene fighter thing, and it was neat, but it doesn't play great. You can emulate it now.
No.
But it was cool to see.
It's not the same.
The technology worked.
Arcade Legacy in Cincinnati actually had a Holocene machine for a while.
Wow.
And that is no longer there as far as I know. I can't imagine what it was like to keep that thing running.
I don't know.
There's also another one I just played recently. It's not even Sega, but I'm just thinking about it. It was the Namco's like prop cycle game. At the local arcade here, I played that just this past week. And it actually has like a proper spinning kind of bicycle on it.
Yeah.
And the whole thing like leans like this, so you use your body weight to move it, and it's got a handlebar bar to twist, and it has a gigantic freaking fan system that blows air in you dynamically as you fly around, and it's just ridiculous, but it's so fun. Yeah. Gosh, okay, we that's good, man. I love this stuff, but we should move on to Dan Matt.
Yeah.
Did the new version of Mega Man The Wily Wars put out by Retrobit truly solve the input latency issue of the original version? Also, would love if John could cover Gravity Circuit in the future for DF. The game has performance issues on some platforms. Thank you, and love both your work.
Thanks.
First answer, no.
Yeah, I think you tested it more extensively.
I tested it myself.
Yeah,
with my actual Japanese cartridge, and it's the same.
Yeah, but
I don't know what they're talking about when they said that, because I could detect zero difference.
Unless I can't remember anymore. I think the trailer's still on YouTube. Maybe they talked about something else, but I'm almost 100% sure that they mentioned it was going to have improved input.
And then it changed.
Yeah. So
I think there is actually there is a hack version that exists maybe that fixes this, like the improvement hack.
Yeah.
But that's not, I don't think that's what's on the cartridge.
No.
It's not better.
No.
Thankfully, the Sequel Wars, which is better in every way so far, doesn't have that problem.
Man, I hope they can finish that.
Me too, because Mega Man 4 already is stunning on that.
Yeah. Insane.
Okay, next one, though, Gravity Circuit. It's a good point, because, Gravity Circuit's one of those games that I personally purchased, so I bought it for PS5, and, I had zero issues there. And because it was my own money and we didn't cover it for the channel, I didn't see it on the other platforms. So I'm intrigued to learn that it apparently hasn't. I assume he's talking about the Switch.
Yeah.
Because what else?
It could be the base systems if it's on there, but
it's not likely I'll be able to cover it just because it's such a.
For your own curiosity,
game, and
you'll probably check out one day.
Yeah, maybe if I can play it on Switch at some point, maybe I'll let you know what's going on.
Dan Matt.
I love that game, though. It's a real good game.
Yeah.
But anyway, Dan, thank you for the question. We're moving on to Scott Hansen, who says, what is a good mid-range 4K, approximately 55-inch TV for retro modern video games? I use mostly an Xbox Series X and plan to get a RetroTink when they come in stock. Is the LG OLED worth it, or some cheaper TVs good enough?
Oh,
Thanks. Get the LG OLED. Seriously, don't dick around with the cheap TVs. I'm serious. Like, they're not. It is not good enough. And in fact, the best thing to do is look for somebody that wants to upgrade, or find somebody that has an LG OLED, like a previous model year. CXC1. Find that. Get that for $55. You can probably get that for a very, very good price.
Yeah, and you will get way more out of those TVs than they will, since they're selling it. So I still use. So here I have a 70 CX, and then back in my home office I have the C1 70 something.
Yeah, you made sure to equip all of the different places where you live throughout the year with LG OLEDs.
Yeah, because I went to your place, and you showed me what you could do, and I was like, I cannot live without this anymore. And I just remember that 6 months in between seeing it and then getting it myself was pain. It was, because it is transformative once you have, especially if you're going to get the RetroTink. But in general, man, when you see something with like proper HDR implementation from a modern system too, on the C1,
Right.
C1 or CX, it just, you can never go back. Never.
Absolutely not. At least for modern screens.
No.
So
Don't
just do that.
What do you
Trust
use
me.
for your
Trust me.
monitor? I mean,
It's a 42-inch LG C2.
C2. Okay.
I think that's the first year they did the 42-inch.
Yeah,
Which is,
I think that's why you got it, right?
Which is why I got it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a 42 C2. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
It's been an awesome monitor. I've been using it like a monitor with zero precautions. Still no evidence of any sort of burn-in or anything weird.
Yeah, none of my CXs or C1 has any burn-in. So that, like, just to get that out of the way, if you play it normally, like as you would, I doubt you will get any burn-in. But check, of course, before you buy it.
Exactly. Okay. Moving on. Next one comes from 1040 STF, good friend of the show. And he asked a question that has been asked to many others over the years, but not us specifically. That is, hi folks, Aladdin on Super NES or Aladdin on Megadrive, and why? For me, Super NES. 100%.
Yeah.
It just comes down to we were talking about games that feel good to play. That game feels great. Like the actual running, the feeling of moving through that world, platforming off things, it feels amazing.
Yeah.
And it is fundamentally a movement-based platformer.
Yeah.
The Mega Drive game is gorgeous. Like, it looks freaking awesome, but
it
does not play basically awesome. It's basically a continuation of the Amiga style platformer, the airplane hangar, where it's just like these big levels that aren't that interesting in terms of design, and the controls and everything about it feel kind of
snappy
sloppy.
Camera. It's just
the snappy camera.
Music.
I mean, sorry, Amiga fans, but it's basically an Amiga game.
The music.
The music sucks.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's a fine, okay game. I understand, like, it was promoted very heavily, so people are
I don't hate it. It's middle of the road. It's better than Jurassic Park.
But man, when you play that Super Nintendo game, and you have like consistent movement through, like you said, it's a movement platform. When you swing, jump, land, like continue, it is so satisfying. I mean, it was designed by Mikami, so just a solid base platformer.
And I do think those guys did improve when they became shiny. I think Earthworm Jim is actually awesome, and I'd like to explain why someday.
Yeah.
Aladdin is so much worse than Earthworm Jim as a game.
But it looks incredible. I mean,
it does look. Yeah, it's genuinely beautiful. I mean, I like how SNES Aladdin looks as well, but the Mega Drive one is pretty amazing.
It was one of the first times the Genesis had like a one-up on Super Nintendo when it came to, like, you know, if a property existed on both, it was like,
and
it looked better.
There's this feeling as well where I kind of wish that had taken off a little more versus the pre-rendered stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I love Donkey Kong Country, but I don't like the trend it started, and I wish that games had trended after this as opposed to DKC.
Yeah.
Because the pre-rendered stuff has mostly aged horribly, but any game that attempted to do the hand-drawn style art like this still looks great today.
Pitfall.
Now, exactly, Pitfall. As 1040 says, though, don't forget Aladdin Final Cut, which is true. It doesn't actually fix the game per se. It does make things better, like the camera works differently, and there's a bunch of other tweaks to it, and it is better, but it's fundamentally still the same base game with the same somewhat mediocre level design.
Yeah.
And but anyway, moving on to Mr. Bespoke, he says, "Hi John, have you tried or going to try the Saturn Saroo, or willing to look at it at some point and see how it stacks up against the Fenrir or the Satiator? They are a couple of videos on the subject, but thought I'd see if you had an opinion on it before I pull the trigger and buy one. Thanks, and keep up the retro goodness."
Uh-huh.
I don't actually even know what the Saturn Saroo is yet. What the heck?
Look it up.
Is it I'm looking... I mean, obviously I know it's some kind of ODE. Oh, is it actually... It's a cartridge? It uses the cartridge slot? Okay, so that actually looks pretty appealing, because it looks like it allows... Similar to the Satiator, it seems like it allows you to use... so wait, it's an ISO loader that plugs into the cartridge slot. It bypasses the optical drive CD block and loads faster than traditional ODE. And it allows you to keep the CD player. So I haven't tried this, but that sounds freaking awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, look into this because fundamentally,
I think
I like to use original discs on my Saturn.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to take the CD player out for an ODE. So being able to keep that, but then also have a cartridge option for certain types of games or homebrew things, that would be awesome. So
yeah,
I need to look this up.
Because that was going to be my answer in general to. Man, I know they're asking you specifically, but in general, both you and I think, are a little bit kind of. ODEs are awesome, especially when they're kind of attachables, like, Saroo apparently, or the 3DO plug-in ODE.
Right,
but when we have to take out the internal lens and swap it for like a SD card thing, we still play most of our games physically. So
right. The disc is part of the experience.
Yeah, for us it is. So
also easier. Like first of all, I don't want a ROM list because that is a mental block thing for me. I don't like ROM lists.
Nope.
It just makes me not play anything. Which also means then if I want to put a game on there and play it, it's much more of a hassle than just putting the disc in.
Right.
So there's also that going for it.
I mean, we both have an X Station, the PlayStation 1. And sometimes
I use it in a pinch, but it is kind of I don't love using it.
Yeah.
But then again, I have the old pre-release version.
That's right.
Which still has the old interface.
Yeah.
I wish I could update that thing. But anyway, that's that. I don't know if there'll be a video or not, but now that you've mentioned it, I'm going to look into it, and maybe there will become one as a result. Let's find out. Next one comes from Isfandire Saskita, who says, "Hi DF Retro. I'm so confused about where to start in retro gaming. I'm a child of the 90s in the UK, but missed out on owning a Super NES, PS1, PS2, and GBA. My first console was an N64. My condolences. And now that I'm older, I basically want to play anything I can get my hands on from these generations. I have an LG C1, so that's BFI sorted, but I can't quite understand how I go about hooking up all these consoles via HDMI. I know there's devices like the retrotink 4K that help with it, but I don't 100% get it. And with the GBA and color games, I thought an analog pocket would be a good fit and wonder what your thoughts are on that. Any help would be appreciated. Thanks for your awesome content." Oh, I'm very ready to help on this.
Yeah.
So, basically, to keep it simple, to get these old consoles on your TV, if you really want to get the real consoles and play them, you're going to need, obviously, so you mentioned the retrotink 4K, and essentially the Tink is like, it's a device. Think of the Tink itself as like its own console that you plug other consoles into. So the Tink has its own HDMI output, and then you got to plug all the other consoles into the Tink.
Yeah.
You can do it one at a time if you want. Using I would recommend getting, you hear things like SCART cables, for instance. If you look that up, it's a specific type of connector, but there's different types of cables you can use on all these consoles, and the RetroTink is designed to support them all, basically. And you can plug them one at a time into the RetroTink, or you can get essentially like a switcher, which is just, it's like you have a bunch of those same ports on a large device, and you plug everything into it, and then that thing then sends the signal to the RetroTink, which sends it to the TV. So just think of it like this chain of devices that you're plugging your other devices into in order to get it to appear on the screen. You can ping me on, or Audie on the Discord, and we can help you further from there.
Yeah.
But it really is that simple. And if you're really serious about jumping in, I mean, when you're saying things like the RetroTink 4K and like the real consoles, I mean, none of this stuff, it's not a cheap rabbit hole.
I mean, you can go for like the Retro 5.
Even the RetroTink 5X Pro, it's not actually cheap.
It's not cheap,
right?
but it's cheaper.
But I think you should, if you're really serious about enjoying them well on a modern screen, it's the way to do it, I think. Either that, or, and honestly, again, I have to say it for real, like CRT. Like, don't get a Pro CRT. Just look for like a consumer set from like the 90s or something.
You can find them.
You can find them for free or cheap still. They're not all expensive.
I will say that the reason for something like a RetroTink, just to kind of very simply explain, is that you need something to transcode the signal into a way that modern TVs don't introduce lag or other kind of,
which
you know,
it's basically
setbacks.
Like you're right, and that's only because the TVs themselves don't do it well.
Yeah, they process things differently, whereas the Tink will process that for the TV, and then you will get almost input lag free experience.
With where we're at now, I'm pretty sure most modern TVs don't offer any analog input at all.
No,
I think it's completely gone.
My dad's new TV does not. So
they used to use dongles sometimes, but I think those days are over. And now, like, modern TVs do not have such inputs, so you really do need the Tink. And any device like it is literally it's just a processing box where you're feeding your consoles into this box, and then that's the thing that communicates with the TV over an HDMI cable. Yeah.
And it does it correctly, so it doesn't introduce any setbacks like input lag or blurring, that kind of stuff that you do not want, because that's going to ruin the experience.
The only problem with using any of this stuff, I find, is that there is still an element of configuration associated with it. Like, it can be somewhat automatic, but it's definitely not optimal, I feel. Like, compared to a CRT where you just plug the thing in and turn it on, and it just goes and it looks amazing. It does take a little bit more work to get these processors to deliver what you want. Although the Tink is still pretty good about delivering a good image just out of the box without any tinkering. It won't be the best image, but it's still good enough, I'd say.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, the Pocket.
Right? Oh, you're right.
Because that's very important.
Of course, I missed that.
Because, yes, the best way of experiencing, especially Game Boy Color, but Game Boy Advance as well, is pretty good on the Pocket. But the Pocket is the ultimate device for handheld games of that nature.
I 100% agree. It's my favorite way to experience them now. I think just the screen quality and the quality of the filters is unmatched.
I mean, we generally will always say, like, well, original hardware, we prefer that. In some ways, the feeling of original hardware is superior. But with the Pocket, that screen, the quality, the light, is just, it's quality of life upgrades that the original handheld devices just cannot compare with. So the Analog Pocket is worth whatever you pay for it. Don't pay more than full price.
Exactly. So that's that then.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Next one comes from definite friend of the show, Andrew Elmore.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Who says, I'm pretty sure he's asked this before, and I still don't know if I know. Flicker filters for interlaced signals on analog displays. How do they work? Is it an advanced scientific process from the great beyond? Probably. Or some kind of incantation of the dark arts of old. Is there even a distinction between the two?
He has asked, or someone has asked this question before. Yeah. I do not understand it. I ask you, do you understand it? And you have theories. You shared theories.
Yeah, I feel, man, it's like they essentially were like jittering and blending the image by like offsetting things per frame.
Yeah.
Somehow, like, it's something done on the hardware itself, and it's basically it feels very hacky to me, but it does seem to be effective. But I do find it does also dramatically blur the image, which some may also find preferable. But like, if you look, PS2 games later especially often actually had the option to turn deflicker on and off, and if you just look at the UI text when you do it, you're really like, oh man, like the sharpness takes a big hit when you turn it on, but it also eliminates the jaggies, so it's kind of a hit or miss thing. I just don't actually 100% understand how it works, and I've not found any good explanations for it anywhere, because it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Nothing to add beyond what you said.
Well, with that in mind, I need to take a quick break because I have to visit a certain other room in the house, if you know what I mean.
Do check if your recording is still going.
I will leave the recording going, but it will stay in this room.
It's solely microphone.
Exactly. The microphone, the camera, it all stays here. I will just return momentarily.
I once went to the bathroom while I was at John's. Got my mic on me. Didn't think about it. Got cut. Never shows up. Be a Patreon exclusive in the future.
All right.
He's back settled in the proper chair for this activity.
Yes, correct.
So next would be Alan Lindquist, right?
But not the Alan, not A1.
I see.
N. This is a different Alan.
Okay.
But equally awesome.
Yeah.
And this Alan asks, with the crazy fast OLED monitors coming in, do you think software black frame insertion could become a thing? Maybe scalers like retrotink that already simulate some effects of actual CRT behavior could also try to simulate the behavior of the temporal behavior of the phosphor, maybe. Seems like there could be some real motion clarity improvements, or do you think these new displays won't make any difference? So, firstly, the retrotink 4K does do its own internal black frame insertion. Mm-hmm. So technically, yes, software BFI is possible, and it does exist.
Yes.
It can be done. I think you can do it a little better technically on the monitor itself because it has more granular control over what it's doing, I suppose. But you're exactly right. Like, if you have something that can take advantage of these ultra high refresh rates, then yeah, I guess the problem there is, would only be limited to PCs effectively, I guess. I mean,
I guess
a PC with a high refresh rate output you could do it on. So like MAME or something, theoretically.
Yeah. I mean, in the future, maybe like other hardware, but like, yeah, I mean, like you say, it's something that can be driven by software. But if you're talking about like the manufacturers of monitors themselves, I don't think they look at the consumer interest in such things with a lot of kind of, it's just, it is still, the applies for us is niche. I'm sure it's used for other things that I don't think it's a consideration, but for like our space, I don't know.
Well, to be fair, though, at least NVIDIA does have this new, and this would be PC only, but it's essentially black frame insertion and VRR together.
Yeah, oh, wow. Really? So, okay.
Strobing and VRR, which is super cool. I think it's called like NVIDIA Pulsar or something. Okay,
so I mean, that's really interesting, actually. But yeah, I mean, that would be on PC, which I mean...
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I do hope there's some... I mean, on the software side, I do hope there's still advancements that can be, that will be done moving forward. Because I do like the concept a lot, and it feels like it is underutilized outside of our very limited range that we do right now.
I agree.
So,
but let's move on to the next one.
Yep.
We have a second one from Slam Vanderhuge, which, gosh, that
This is the direct-to-video version.
Yeah. He says, "Sup, boys? Joe D from Joyzy again.
Hey.
I'm about halfway through. Hey, I'm about halfway through Arzette. Excellent fun, by the way. I was thinking about what other CDI 3DO games could be revived similarly.
We just answered this earlier, huh?
Yeah, kind of.
But yeah,
with this,
just to reiterate, we absolutely the CDI software will be back, and we will always take inspiration from our favorite eras and genres.
Exactly, such as the Daedalus encounter.
I'm talking to Tia Carrera right now. But
wonderful.
Somehow this person as well, John, just goes back to American laser games and digital pictures. What's going on here? Like, I didn't know
Nobody actually liked those games, though.
I mean, Night Trap and stuff came back.
That's not true. Actually, I saw I saw the second Mad Dog. Wait, I saw Mad Dog McCree 2 at the arcade the other day, running on a big screen with the original Laserdisc version, and it's actually 60 frames per second video.
Wow, I have the CDI version of that.
Right, so it would be a step down, but still.
Yeah, but if you want to see a take on a like how can this be done, John and I were involved with Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, the definitive edition. So if you absolutely want to play an FMV game on your PS5, PS4, or Switch,
unquote.
check that one out.
Indeed. All right, next one. Jared Kober. They say, if you could bring any feature or aspect of retro gaming forward to implement into modern gaming, what would it be? Can be gameplay features, standards, or anything you guys think retro got right that we could use today. Thanks for all these years of terrific retro content. I always get the most excited for DF retro videos. Ooh.
I mean, you can actually kind of look at our set a little bit here and see kind of how we applied a slight artificial limitation to our gameplay scope in order to kind of achieve the proper feeling, nostalgic feeling of that type of gameplay. So I guess like technical limitation, today that's completely self-enforced. But if you apply it from like, okay, what could a 16-bit game do, and kind of stay within those perimeters and try to push that as far as it could, but still like do not go. That's one of my biggest pet peeves with a lot of modern retro platformers and action games, is that aesthetically it's like beautiful, and then you get to the gameplay and it just feels confused. It feels self-indulgent, and it feels like they didn't really understand the aspects of classic gameplay design.
I think there's plenty that do, though.
I'm not saying every single one. I'm saying in general, my impression of that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but I really do feel like some games do an awesome job.
We're not the only ones.
In fact, I was just playing the final version of Berserk Boy.
Oh yeah, with T. Lopes, right?
Freaking loving that, man. Yeah, it's awesome. Mm-hmm. It's like,
we didn't reinvent the wheel with our set. I'm just saying, like, I certainly I curate and test games as well in my day job, and that's one of the things that comes up a lot. Is just kind of that aspect of it. But what else?
Yeah, but this is a hard question though, because I feel like everybody's done everything now, and it's more about limits rather than bringing things forward. I mean, the only really aspect of retro gaming that I can continue to want to bring forward even more is just clarity of display, like motion clarity.
Yeah.
Like the properties of a CRT being brought to modern games. But the games themselves, I mean, everything is happening one way or the other. It doesn't always mean it's up to par with the classics, but I mean, I guess I would like to see games maybe slim down a little bit more and stop trying to be like these gigantic forever games. Yeah. But
that's where limitation comes in again. That's why we want to push forward this limitation.
But anyway, I want to move on to the next one because I saw a couple words in there that made me excited. This one's from Monty G. Burns. Monty Burns. When I was young, the only games I could afford came from the literal bottom of the bargain barrel.
Oh, you came from Europe too,
Yep. I ended up playing games considered some of the worst of all time. And I'm a little offended here when he said these include masterpieces such as Beast Wrestler, which I've not played.
That's a bad
Revolution
one.
X and PO'd. And I'm going to tell you, Revolution X and PO'd are awesome. Do not.
No. PO'd can F you.
I like PO'd.
I know you do.
I also love Revolution
X. We had a great time. Remember?
The arcade version of Revolution X is freaking awesome.
Yeah, the console versions I can understand.
Some of the console versions are real bad.
Remember, we went to the arcade, had such a good time that we went back home that day, and we're like, we're going to play through every version of this game on console. Oh, yeah. And I think we came out feeling like none of the console versions got close.
No, none of them really actually delivered.
No.
It was kind of a bummer. Man, the arcade version is so that moment when Steven Tyler like throws you the keys to his car, and you're just like, oh shit,
it's on now, baby.
When they're playing on the stage and you're like ducking between the seats and shooting dudes with like records
while they sing "Feed the Rich."
Awesome, dude. God, that was good. What an amazing sequence, dude.
Pretty good.
But anyway, I look back at the games fondly because even a bad game can be great when played with family and friends.
Yeah.
What objectively awful games do you have nostalgia for due to when and who you played them with? P.S. I picked up a copy of Wrestling with Pixels to see if Audie covered Beast Wrestler, and I was not disappointed.
Yeah, obviously that's in there. Yeah, I mean, my career is built on my love for bad games, so John probably has a very different answer to how he experiences the games with me, but I love going to John's and play 4 weeks of Phoenix games in a row, so I know what you're talking about.
Oh my god.
But I do think, in many ways, like, a lot of the games that we also tend to describe as bad, are, especially now when you look at Metacritic, I've seen people consider like a 7 or even a 6 out of 10 bad, right? But then when I look back at what I grew up with, a lot of those games probably would land in the middle of that Metacritic curve. But I have some of the best memories I ever had from those games because they were just fun pick up and play experiences. So I don't think what you're saying is off base at all. I think, entertainment and fun comes from within, right? Like, so sometimes what people consider bad, someone else can consider just fine. So
yeah, some of the games that spring to mind for me that probably aren't necessarily bad, but I think they're not exactly loved either. Stuff like, Normality, Interplay,
okay.
the Blake Stone games, which are basically just Wolfenstein clones.
Right.
I don't think they're exactly well regarded, though I guess they're okay. What else? I have memories for things like Lagoon on Super NES.
Yeah, I played that when it came out.
People seem to not like Lagoon, but my friend and I had a lot of fun playing through that game. It was really hard, but we liked it.
Yeah.
And I still have a fondness for it as a result. I mean, I would say something like, it's not actively bad, but like Stunt Race FX, it's not really that good. Like,
no, but
mainly because it's kind of drugged down by the awful performance, which is a no for a racing game, but I still love the heck out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think kind of what stands out.
Oh, Trespasser. Jurassic Park Trespasser.
Yeah, Trespasser is fun.
I have such a fondness for that game, and I found beauty and brilliance hidden within in a way that really surprised me at the time. It's super janky, but the first time you get to that city area behind the gate where like all the residential areas were and like the old labs, that feeling of barely making it from building to building because raptors are like wandering the grounds. And they can't get into the buildings, but they sure can stick their heads to the windows. But like they had like something about the way the AI worked in that game made them like extra frightening.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like a normal enemy, or they would kind of like mill around, but they had like a physics properties to them. And then when they would see you, they would kind of come for you in this weird way. And it was scary and intense. And I'll never forget climbing the mountains, getting higher on that mountain, getting into the pine trees, and just, it ain't a good game, but man, I loved it.
Yeah. That's a good one. And, there's a couple of games that you and I absolutely love that I've seen people still define as bad. And one is Hook on Super Nintendo. Didn't review particularly well. And still to this day, I see people saying it's just kind of like a slow, bad platformer. But man, Hook is awesome. It's just, I love that game.
Oh yeah, Hook, man. Hook, I think, is actually good.
It's actually good, yeah. I mean, in my opinion, it is. But people will still claim it's bad. So I don't know if it's us being crazy or not, but I don't think so.
So what about like Lost Eden?
Lost
I
Eden?
got Lost Eden as a kid. I'm not sure it's actually a good game, but I have fond memories.
You mean the adventure game? I mean,
yeah.
How do you define those? I mean, if you jive with it, right? It's it's one.
I enjoyed
awesome. Yeah.
Although at least 50% of that's due to the music.
Yeah, Stefan Pick.
Which was incredible at the time. I was like, oh my god.
Same person that did Dune and Riverworld and these games. Yeah, I mean, Turtles 1 on NES is another one where it's just...
Oh, yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of bad.
Yeah. There's a lot of wrestling games. Beast Wrestler is really bad, but I had a ton of fun, even with like the Sculptor software, like Super WrestleMania. Steel WrestleMania Challenge on NES. I played forever when I was a kid. It just comes down to your own enjoyment. So yeah, it's a good question and a good comment. I like thinking about this. But
at the same time, I do remember a couple games that stuck out in my head as being like offensively bad at the time. I bought a copy of something called Shadows of Karn, I guess, which was like a Prince of Persia like game.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I really hated it, and it left such a nasty taste in my mouth, and I won't forget that.
I mean, I redefined a whole generation's perception of Bubsy, so I mean, we should probably mention that
True.
too.
I mean, yes.
So
I gave you a platform to do it.
It sure did.
And we took that and ran with the ball.
Yeah. So there's that.
That was good. Also, what is it? Brain Dead 13. Not so much me, but my friend Rob. Okay, like we were way into like LucasArts point and click adventure games. He bought that thinking it was going to be one of those, and the art style is awesome looking. We really didn't know that it was like a Dragon's Lair game, and that's what it is. I remember he got home and he called me on the phone, like actually like in tears that he had spent his money on this. Like he was like, it's just, when he realized what it actually was, he was brought to tears. That's how disappointing it was. And I don't blame him. I would have done the same.
Yeah.
Because holy moly, I don't like those games.
A big one for this list for me is Toshinden. And one day. But Toshinden, I still maintain, is fun and
That's
deeper
important
than what people give it credit for.
Indeed.
So we'll get to that.
Let's move on, though, to the next one from Conic and Snuggles, which is a good name.
All right, says, that's great.
Will we ever see new CRT technology? Is a question that gets asked often.
Yeah.
Of course, the answer has always been a very sobering and apologetic no.
Yeah.
Yet in October's Q&A number 6, Audi pondered a more feasible alternative, replicating the look of a CRT with future display technology. To which I ask, what if a company were to build a niche product today using bleeding edge but otherwise commercially available components? A 4x3 convex, not concave OLED panel. I'd actually leave that part off. I would just stick with flat.
Yeah.
An internal FPGA powered scaler that emulates phosphor and scan lines at 8K, and eschews a global BFI in favor of a per pixel rolling BFI for less than 1 frame of input latency, and a deliberately chunky bezel evocative of an old JVC or Toshiba. When viewed head on, would you buy it, John?
Would you buy it, John? Yeah.
I actually don't think you should include things like the chunky bezel and the convex screen. Like there's not actually, that's not what's good about CRT specifically.
Yeah.
Right?
That's just...
I think you should take advantage of the form factor and advantages of a flat panel display.
Yeah.
But all the other ideas, like if you can more closely like drive this thing using hardware
and software.
And software together,
yeah.
like internally, and it's got all these inputs on the back, and like basically like a scaler, but with more control over the display itself.
Yeah.
Frick yeah, I would absolutely love something like that.
Because
cool as heck.
I think a combination here, like if you can combine some of the hardware with strong software solutions, you can look at something like a RetroArch. I think this is what he's referring to, because we talked about this in October. But yeah, if you have good shader masks and things like this that can emulate a bit of the hue and glow of a phosphor plus,
I agree with that, but what I think is more interesting is if you could actually get that to work at a hardware level. You plug a SCART cable in and it works like the retrotink, but can kind of simulate those effects at a hardware level on the display.
Yeah, I just wonder how feasible that, like on a hardware level.
I think it's possible.
It's possible. It's technically feasible. I just don't know. My brain is too much in tune now with like whether or not it's feasible from a manufacturing standpoint on the scale that people buy it.
All of it's feasible, but the cost is too high.
Exactly.
And there's no way you could actually put that R&D money out for such a thing. You'd have to find somebody who's willing to throw a lot of money at a crazy project like this.
And then maybe, I mean, we've seen crazy things. The last 5 years, in the space that we are in with like retrotinks, all these solutions have been incredible. So who even knows what we're going to sit here and talk about in the next 5 years, right?
Agreed.
So never say never, but I would be more optimistic for having slight hardware specs to conform with like software solutions. And
Right.
I think software in itself, like a compilation and stuff like that, can include that. So yeah, I think we're going to see advancements to bring more CRT, not just scan lines, not just filters, but like actual masks, shader masks into the products.
Agreed. That's cool stuff. But all right, we should move on to Matthew Smith's question, which says, well, it's comment first. Love your retro vids. Thank you. Quick question. Is the RetroTink 4K a sufficiently meaningful upgrade over the RetroTink 5X Pro for your average GameCube or PS2 retro gamer? Or put another way, for 480p games upscaled to 1440p by the RetroTink 5X, is that extra bit of upscaling by the RetroTink 4K that noticeable of an improvement? I would say no. I think in your case, like, there is some benefits to that for sure, but if that's all you're doing with it, I feel like it's not worth spending the cost of the 4K to upgrade just for that. I think it would actually be an improvement, but probably not meaningful enough for you to want to spend that much, I would say, because the 5 is still a very good product. Let's be clear.
Oh, it is the best retro product on the market right now, but it's also expensive. But it's worth them. If you have the money for it, you're gonna have decades of usage out of it. So don't think of it as a short-term enjoyment thing. This is something you're going to be using probably for the rest of your life.
You got it. And going up then, we've got the next question from Thomas Trollo, who says, hey, John and Audie, I always enjoyed learning more about you guys personally. So what food or drink reminds you of your childhood?
All right.
What brings back the good old days?
So retro food.
So is it that smelly fish in a can? No, I'm just kidding. That's
Sweden. That's Sweden. That's surströmming, which I will never bring down to your place. I mean, yeah, we were gonna have extremely different answers here because you grew up in the US of A. I grew up in Norway.
Yes.
I don't know.
Grandiosa.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we joke about that, but Grandiosa does. I'm still on the market, but that is certainly a taste of my childhood. I really liked carton juice when I was a kid, and it used to be big business here, where like all these licensed things, you could buy like a carton and then it has a straw and like an apple juice or something in it, and one of them was Asterix's magic potion, which perfect, right? So I used to drink that a lot and love it, which is kind of similar to, I know you Americans have like the High C Ghostbusters juice, which is kind of like a childhood thing, right?
Yeah, I didn't have that so much, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, like Americans have that, which is a similar kind of tie-in.
For me, it's stuff like Skyline Chili, of course, La Rosa's, Graters, all the Cincinnati stuff. The original Cheetos for some reason. A soda called Tahitian Treat, which I used to love.
All right.
There was also a soda called Squirt.
That still exists. Squirt.
That exists?
Yeah. I had it like last year. It's not great.
I liked it back in the day.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
But I also liked Mountain Dew, of course. Yeah. So that stuff kind of. Also, my mom used to make these. She would cut up potatoes in little squares and put it with peas and like cheese and call it Energon cubes after the Transformers.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, for me, I grew up a lot with just homemade cooking, so I have retro nostalgia in that sense for like my grandfather cooking when he was alive, and like I attach a lot of my childhood with that because I used to go there every week basically up until he left us 10 years ago.
That's pretty cool.
So another thing I did get to try. Because I was in Sweden. We went to a store in Sweden when I was very young, and they had imported American candy. And the one thing I had seen on like I think Sky or something, like a channel, had shown like American Candy, and one of them was a turtle pie, Ninja Turtles pie.
Ooh, okay.
And I got to try it. It was like a vanilla pudding pie that was green, and I loved it at the time. Obviously, it left in the 90s. I would have loved to taste that again because it probably was terrible, but it was a Ninja Turtles pie. So uh, I feel very fortunate in my life as a European that I found that at the time I found it, got to taste it once, and kind of have that American pop culture taste. So.
Oh man, okay. Something else came back though to me. Pizza Hut personal pan pizzas.
I do remember those.
Dude, like go and those red tumbler glasses where I would get like Dr. Pepper in it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you don't like.
Nah,
but
I hate Dr. Pepper.
I would go there. It was the old style Pizza Hut.
Mm-hmm.
They had a Neo Geo cab in that Pizza Hut where I played a lot of Samurai Showdown 2 on it.
It's not,
and I have very fond memories of this for some reason.
It's not my childhood as much, but I mean, it's now almost 20 years ago. When I lived in Brazil, Pizza Hut was like one of the places I used to go to, and they had Portuguese pizza, which has like ham, olives, and eggs on it. And it was delicious. I used to eat that all the time. So that's my Pizza Hut memory from when I was a young adult.
I mean, your first broad experiences definitely hit home. I mean, when I lived in Japan for that year, I lived across from a Freshness Burger.
Oh my god!
And I almost once a week I would just swing by the Freshness Burger and get something, and I really liked those freaking burgers. They were damn good.
Yeah, they are. So yeah, when I lived in Japan as well, there's it's not our childhoods, but we did have a episode of the F After Dark about living abroad, which goes back into our past, and we do talk about food there. So we'll move on from this question, but we'll revisit more childhood stuff, I guess, in the F After Dark. Sure. You just need to tell us what dark, twisted parts of it you want us to.
And thus we will. And for now, though, let's move on to the next question from the Snorlax Jobless.
Oh. Sorry about your
better to play the PS2 classic versions of games. The PS3 Super Slim software emulation or PS4 software emulation? The answer is PS3 Super Slim.
Yeah.
PS4 software emulation of PS2 freaking sucks.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It looks like garbage. I would never use it. I do not recommend it. Just ignore it.
Yeah.
It's a bad way to go. The PS3 does okay, actually. It's not the best, but it actually produces pretty decent results. And as a result, I would go with that one if you have to choose. Simple. Next one then from Renki.
Long timer as well. Renki
long time. Yeah. Renki rules. Thank you, Renki, for still being here. And he says hello and congrats on Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore, being released.
Thanks.
I really enjoyed it. Finished it during a long flight. Awesome. I was laughing out loud on some of the jokes and instantly recognized Audie's voice as one of the characters.
Yeah. They would not have recognized you.
No.
You did a very good job masking yourself.
Most people did not do that.
Yeah.
Thankfully, you didn't mask yourself because that was the perfect voice.
Yes.
You really have a penchant for these old men that kind of trail off. Like you can feel the pain coming out of them.
We will do a couple of videos about the making of our set, and we'll go into voice recording and stuff there.
Oh. Yeah, perhaps I could even try doing it right now. A little bit of this voice, such as any chance of making a retro console port?
Oh my
CDI,
god.
obviously, but others like Mega CD, 3DO, etc. And Funky Fungus.
I mean, we've joked about this with Seth, but this would be extremely super difficult because it's made in a modern tool, game maker for modern platforms.
Yeah.
It would essentially be reprogramming the game for these. The CDI, I think, is actually impossible. The hardware's just not capable.
No.
Honestly, none of those machines listed... Like, the thing about this game that makes it so technically infeasible is because of the way the backgrounds work, where each level is a giant painting. It's not tiled. It's a gigantic, full-screen, huge, like, just piece of art. Like, that giant graphic... That's super difficult to
It,
do
and it was
retro
actually
hardware.
Yeah, we had trouble implementing it onto, for example, the Switch without it having impact on performance. So, yeah, I mean that was a challenge. There is someone out there that actually is doing some proof of concept on Megadrive. I saw, like, unofficially. It has nothing to do with us. So I
mean,
wouldn't be surprised if someone comes up with like some sort of offshoot way of doing it. Like, it wouldn't be the full background. It would probably be chopped up or something. But
it'd have to be tiled. Like, fundamentally, those machines, well, not the ones mentioned here, but the most machines back then were tile based systems.
What you would have to do differently.
And those that weren't wouldn't necessarily have the memory or speed to be able to move around such a gigantic background.
Yeah. No.
CDI could do it like screen by screen, I suppose, but it would be bad. Like, the CDI hardware is not good.
So it's not something we have any plans for, just because.
No.
But it would be fun.
I think if we promised that, Seth would have a heart attack, and we do not want that. We do not want that. No. So we're not promising any of those, and I don't think it's really feasible. No. It would require some crazy guy, like one of those Brazilian dudes, to come in and be like, I'm just going to make it work.
I know, based on us saying no, someone's going to come on our Twitter and basically just say, like, well, I got this to run. And then it will be like a section and a proof of concept, and that's going to be awesome. But the whole game, just the animation, and like there's over 40 minutes of animation in the game. That's a lot of space. So,
I mean, to make this work, you would need like a very large amount of memory and just like storage that the system could access regularly.
Yeah, like an MSU1. So, like, it's just not
more than that. Yeah, it's not really feasible on any of those machines. It would have to be something kind of different.
Yeah.
But anyway, next question from Christian Kundig, who says, "Guten Tag, Guten Tag."
Guten Tag.
Obviously, everybody is always coming back. There's a new Monkey Island, and MS did another flight simulator, and I'm sure arena shooters will soon have a comeback as well. But some genres seem to clearly have had their peak, at least in terms of popularity, behind them. What is your favorite genre of past days, and when was the high point of said genre in your opinion? Love what you're doing. Keep up the good work.
I have the answer for this for mine, but
okay, go.
Cinematic platformers of the 16-bit era. They peaked. You have like Another World, you have Flashback, you have many offshoots, you have like On Escape E, and it peaked around. There are 32-bit games similar, and now recently we've seen like what's the one that's on Evercade? Other Void.
Oh, that's right. I forget the name.
Yeah,
that was a good
Void
one.
Something, and it's good. And I've seen some tweets come up where it's just like people prototyping the cinematic platform again, but that definitely peaked early mid-90s. And you go into like Heart of Darkness and things like this, and I love Heart of Darkness, but it is not very approachable. It's very difficult and abstract in some ways. So I would say that's my favorite genre that kind of lives with those games. Short-lived genre, but making its comeback, it looks like. You got Lunark these days that came out.
Oh yeah, Lunark. That's
which
cool.
is very good.
Lunark is good.
Yeah.
I mean, for my money, one, arcade-style racing games have disappeared, which is sad.
It's so sad.
I mean, it just doesn't fit in with the types of, like, everybody wants to release games that they believe people will play for years to come.
I just don't understand how, like...
that actually is how arcade racers are for me. So.
I mean, there have been arcade racers in the last couple of years, right? But, yeah, there's something lacking in... I don't know what it is. I think it's the color, maybe? It's the blue skies that's missing, or...
I don't know. But that's one of them.
Yeah.
I would also throw out something like space combat dogfight style simulators like TIE Fighter, Wing Commander. I mean, obviously we have the Star Citizen campaign thing in development for a decade or more. But I feel like that kind of thing has all but disappeared. Like I don't really see many of those.
No.
So that's mostly gone. I'd also venture to say games like MechWarrior 2, like that style of mech game, that was huge at the time, and it feels like it's not around.
What about like Command and Conquer style strategy games? I mean, that seems to be kind of.
I mean, in terms of popularity, that's pretty much, it's nowhere near where it was. It was freaking gigantic.
Yeah, Red Alert
at the time. Red Alert, and then of course, Warcraft 2 was big, but then StarCraft was a juggernaut. And StarCraft 2 was also huge for a while, and then it just sort of dropped off, and we've kind of seen that genre kind of fade away somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an awesome Command and Conquer remake, at least.
That's right.
I really, really enjoyed, but yeah, the genre itself doesn't seem to be... It feels like MOBAs overtook it, sadly.
Yeah.
And since it was kind of born from an RTS, Warcraft 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, okay, that's an interesting one. Anyway, next up, what's the best way to present 50 Hz content in 60 Hz platforms? I'm thinking of the upcoming Jeff Minter collection, where the bulk of his work was PAL.
Yeah. But
the collection will be on Switch and consoles that the bulk of the users will have on a fixed 60 Hz screen.
Very good question. Very, very
Unfortunately, good question. I mean, if you have VRR on some platforms, that will do it, but by and large... There's not actually a good solution to this.
I worked on a couple projects which have had this issue, and John has as well. I'll bleep it. But like the problem is, like, there are ways that you can mask it with like interpolation and like blurring of frames, and like there's different solutions you can look into, but none of them.
I don't love that.
None of them. So, I haven't played Jeff Minter Collection yet. I'm very curious about it because, first of all, I love Digital Eclipse's work. But you're right. I'm curious how they handled that. But what's most important about the Jeff Minter Collection, John, is that we're finally getting the Koenix system. The Koenix.
That's right. The Koenix multi-system.
I call it Koenix, but yeah, the Koenix. That was
going off the old commercial.
That was a system that never released, and now they somehow FPGA'd it or something, and now
I don't know what they've done.
Yeah,
that's nuts. But I can't wait to see it. But I think unfortunately we're just going to have to deal with the judder. It's just kind of.
I'm pretty sure that's just I'm guessing they're going to have a disclaimer.
The only real solution is to reprogram the games.
Yeah, and
which may or may not be possible.
It's Digital Eclipse. Mike is crazy, so maybe they did.
I mean, I also noticed this just the other day with there was that release of the Virtual Boy emulator on 3DS, which is pretty darn amazing, I have to say. But for those that aren't aware, the Virtual Boy runs at 50 Hz.
Yeah.
So it's a PAL console in spirit, even though I don't think it got a European release. But that internal Virtual Boy display is 50 Hertz, so the games are 50 frames per second.
Cool.
And you get judder. There's no way around it.
That's.
Oh well.
Yeah. Can't do anything about it.
Exactly. But anyway,
that was from Todd Weitzel, by the way, who's another long timer.
Oh yeah, thank you, Todd. TOD. And the next one comes from Uncle Mo. Here you go. Here I am. Uncle Mo, thank you, ma'am. This will be a treat. Uncle Mo, here I am. Why you eat? And he says, hello, DF. I recently upgraded to a 7.1 setup, and it has been an amazing way to revisit my favorite games. However, I'm wondering what the proper way to set up Dolby Pro Logic II on semi-modern receivers would be. To play my PS2 and GameCube titles, I have a launch PS3. Oh, wow, you can play GameCube titles on there, huh? And a GC with the GC HDMI Mark. Oh, okay, I see. Mark connected to a Denon X2200W. When enabling PL2 and supported games, I've been setting the receiver to Dolby Surround. Is that the correct setting to get things working properly, or am I way off base? Congrats on the launch of Arzette.
Thanks so much. You're the receiver guy. When it comes to I used to have a Pro Logic 2 enabled surround system.
There's my receiver.
I got that the day I got Resident Evil 4 on GameCube. But I mean, that was back in the day. So
there used to be, so it's ultimately still sending like a stereo thing. It's just the receiver decoding and sort of interpreting the signal to turn it into a sort of a surround effect.
Yeah.
As far as I know, the only thing you can do is set it to like Dolby Surround on a modern receiver, because they mostly don't have any specific DPL2 modes anymore, from what I've seen. Back in I had an old Onkyo receiver that I remember it actually had specific Dolby Pro Logic II modes and regular Dolby Pro Logic. I think Dolby Surround technically predates those, if I recall, versus Pro Logic. Dolby Surround 2014. So hold on, there may be. So it seems like they introduced a new version of Dolby Surround, and I actually don't know the whole thing. So it seems like Dolby Surround actually is like a descendant then. It's not the original Dolby Surround moniker. Okay, I see. I see. The first generation. Okay, so Dolby brought back the Dolby Surround moniker apparently in 2014. But it's not actually the original iteration, because there was Dolby Surround, then there was Dolby Pro Logic, then Pro Logic 2, like 2X and whatever.
Yeah.
And Dolby Surround is the replacement of Pro Logic. So it seems, based on this information, that to use Dolby Pro Logic 2 style games, you are indeed correct to set it to Dolby Surround, because that is what handles it in a modern receiver. Okay, so there you go.
Okay.
That's just how things are now. They're just labeled that way, apparently. Okay, cool. Good. Onward. From Woody Chang, who says, "Hi guys, for retro re-releases compilations, what would you say would need to be in there to be your ideal package? I've been digging into the digital Eclipse compilations like Atari 50, but it seems like collection re-releases run the gamut from good to awful. Given that you've commented on things like input lag and poor scaling, I want to hear what your dream retro re-release compilation has. Maybe comment on which series you'd like to see done up this way. Thanks as usual. Looking forward to your next DF Retro video, whether it's a 3-hour epic or a shorter EX episode." Ooh, this is especially relevant because you actually are working on these types of things.
Yeah, that's my day job. I mean, so for me, what's important is options and context. So that's two sides of it. It's like, for understanding the popularity and the kind of reasoning for that game to be curated as a compilation, I want the context to be there. So I want there to be a robust selection of documentation and things like that give people the understanding of it's not just a game on the list, it's a game that's been curated to be re-released for people to enjoy. And then the other side of it is people have different ways of enjoying a game. So options in terms of display, sound, input. The more people can customize the experience to be their own, the better.
I agree.
Yeah.
I would like to see more. So CRT filters are a tough one.
Yeah.
And I feel like most people get them wrong.
Yeah.
Digital Eclipse gets them wrong. I'm sorry, Audie.
You
guys
wrong.
got it wrong.
Yeah.
You got them wrong too. The best CRT filters I've ever seen in a game was not in a retro collection. It was in Sonic Mania.
Yeah.
They implemented two of the best, like, just built-in CRT filters I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I know they actually looked specifically at two types of monitors and tried to simulate the way the phosphors look. I would like to see that attention to detail as, like, just like I don't think we need all those customization options necessarily. I think we need some really, really good options, and like 2 different CRT types, maybe like a super sharp pixel mode, an original 1:1 pixel mode, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just like 4 or 5 different things, but each one needs to be dialed in and perfect. That's what I would like to see for the presentation side of things.
Yeah.
And I'd almost like that interface to even... I feel like some way to walk the user through these types of experiences.
Yeah. Depending on what kind of game and what kind of experience you're seeking, absolutely creating it as a showcase and like almost like a museum piece. I think it's going to be essential moving forward for a lot of these remasters. So, and that's what kind of Digital Eclipse with their interactive documentary stuff is doing.
They're getting there.
Yeah.
They're getting there. There's one element that I really want to see implemented, and I've not seen it yet, where essentially, given that we have things like save states, but even possibly just reprogramming bits, I would like to see things like interviews directly integrate game stuff into it. Like, you have the developer say, oh yeah, we tried to do this, right?
Yeah.
What if you cut to, like, say, like a test room, allowing the player that's watching the interview to experience the thing that you've done, or maybe like experience different iterations of something as it was happening.
Yeah.
So it's not just a commentary, it's not just watching an interview, but putting interactive bits that lets the player get their hands on things in there. This would be a huge undertaking, I understand, but I feel like adding a level of interactivity so that when you're hearing this stuff in front of you, like, you actually get to like play it as the developer talks about it.
Yeah,
I think that would be cool.
If you were playing like a Tekken compilation, right, 1, 2, 3, and you watch an interview and they talk about even something like we had designed a character that got cut, and if you can actually jump to a test room where you can play as that model, like just play around with it, just like that sort of stuff is really interesting.
Or have like their original, like, okay, we were experimenting with the skeleton system to show like a wireframe skeleton, or like show like this is when we first got the motion capture data, and like let people like toy around with it, and like just like things, you can make it do something interesting there. And on that same note, when dealing with PC games and such, like old PC games, I think it would be cool to recreate things like the experience of the installer and sound card configuration. Find a way to preserve that in a fun way that lets the user like remember what it was like to do that part of the setup. Just because it's all about creating this like little... It's about creating a package that the player falls into, and it sort of transports them back to a different era. And I really think Digital Eclipse has gotten really close and good on a lot of this, but I think there's still room to grow and things to do better. Some of it may be outside the scope of budgets and such, and that's fundamentally one of the biggest problems. But man, I want to see this go even further. That would be the dream, is to work on that kind of thing, to really truly master the art of presenting this stuff to people. And also the DF retro like stuff, like if you're talking about how something about the graphics work, just like let the player break down the graphics, look at those layers, look at the polygon models, look at how certain scenes are built, the wireframe, the flat shading, show up examples of how things work, like bring that to life in a way that you could only do with an interactive piece.
No, I totally agree with you. So
that's my pie in the sky dream.
One day.
So don't worry, Audie. I'm not expecting Carbon to suddenly get all the budget to do all this crazy stuff.
I'm writing it all down.
You guys are doing good enough.
No, but I do agree with you, and I do think there's going to be avenues in the future to experiment a lot more with that. As long as the audience is there, I think the demand will continue to grow, and those budgets will allow for that kind of stuff to happen.
Precisely. But anyway, let's move on to another longtime member's question, Eric Benoit.
The man that is everywhere. If I watch My Life in Gaming, if I watch DF Retro, if I watch any...
He's around.
He's there. And
Can't
thank God.
see him. And he's also been playing a lot of Doom lately, as John already knows from the Discord live stream. Sorry. I got a retrotink 4K luckily this month, and I've been playing Doom 3 on the OG Xbox. I'm playing on an LG Nano 85-inch. Oh, geez, it's huge. It's okay, but it looks off. I then went full Corey Carlson. I ran the retrotink 4K at 1440p through a 1996 19-inch Sony Trinitron via an HDMI to composite converter. Maybe I'm losing it, but it looked great.
Yeah.
Is this just CRT addiction, or is doing what I did an effective type of downscaling with benefits? Yeah, it is. You are downscaling.
Yeah.
You're also taking advantage of just the nature of CRTs and the fact that it's a low res game that's not really designed to be viewed at 85 inches, if we're honest. 85 is way beyond what screen sizes were when the Xbox was. I mean, there were some very big rear projection TVs, but they were not like this HD kind of stuff. And so, yeah, you're just seeing the benefits of using a smaller CRT, basically. And yeah, I agree. I'd rather play Doom 3 on a 19-inch CRT than a large LCD any day.
Yeah.
So yeah, you answered your own question, sort of. Anyway, we got another one from another long timer, Nolasco.
Says, I love seeing all these names
DF
still
Hermanos. Oh no, dude, if you guys are, man, I know I haven't been able to get as much stuff out as I wanted last year, but
this year
I have no idea how much you have no idea how much I appreciate all the support through all this kind of stuff. Especially with everything going on, man. It's great to see you all still here. So, let's get into Nolasco's question. He says, being a dude from the early days of gaming, all from the arcades, Atari 2600, NES, Master System, and so on, I was wondering, with so many re-releases of old games for PS1 to current gen, is there a way to tell if a game is a conversion or emulation? Pretty sure that later compilations for later consoles are emulation, I'd imagine. Thanks for your passion.
So we did a podcast, and we're starting a podcast, and I don't know when it's scheduled to go up, but that first episode is about game compilations, and we actually discussed at large kind of when we started feeling the transition from ports to emulation happening. So
absolutely,
we can kind of refer to that podcast, I think, for this answer. But I think you're right. Today, I'd be very shocked if anyone is sitting there porting a game from PlayStation 1 or NES to new systems.
These days, emulation's always the thing. I think really, once you got to the Dreamcast, PS2, etc. era, we started to see developers move towards emulation since those platforms were now powerful enough to actually do it.
Yeah.
It wasn't always the best, but the PS1 generation and prior, anytime a game was brought forward, like Namco Museum, Sonic Jam, and the like, it was reprogrammed to run on those machines.
Yeah.
As you can imagine. And in some ways, I kind of actually like that because it does produce a slightly different, unique take on it than emulation. But obviously, if you want to accurately reproduce that experience, then I guess emulation's the way to go.
Today it is. Back then, couldn't.
Back then, no. We got two more.
Cool.
Next up from Tony Escobar.
Another long time.
Can't wait. Can't wait for this episode. Oh, heck yeah.
It's here.
Follow-up
right now.
Follow-up question from before.
Okay.
Any chance we can get a bibliography of Audie's writings? Oh, man, that would be nuts.
I think he asked this before. I promise. I did start to try to catalog everything I've done over the years. I will get back to it. I'll leave a comment to Tony Escobar.
Cool. Now on to new questions. What game do either of you... Wait. What game or games do either of you serve as content creators, producers, etc.?
Oh, okay.
What does that mean?
So he's asking, what games do either of you serve as content creators, producers, etc.? So which games have we worked directly on?
Oh. What is what games... did either of you serve as okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Apologies, Tony. My brain is I was having trouble parsing that. Thought I was having a stroke right there. Yes. Is there any chance? Okay. First of all, to answer that,
yes. I mean,
you've got a lot.
Yeah. So I worked on quite a few. John has been working with me on a few of them now the last year. So, I mean, there's a Patreon video, so we can mention it. Yeah. I've been the lead producer on Trip World DX, Jurassic Park Games Collection, Rocket Knight Adventures Resparked. There's more. Boy and His Blob collection. Don't mention it.
Plumbers.
I was the director of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, the Definitive Edition, and then I was also the lead producer on Bill and Ted's NES and Game Boy compilation, the best of all.
The best one.
John has been serving as a consultant on the majority of the stuff I worked on, because it's just so handy to have him comment on it. So you were involved with Trip World DX, testing right. that. You were involved with Plumbers Don't Wear Ties extensively.
Oh yeah,
and you're in that game. And then for our set,
and achievement.
Yeah, you are an achievement on Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. And then on our set, we formed a new creative group called CDI Software. So,
right.
And John and I will be involved with all those productions moving forward. So John will be executive producer and designer, and I will be, whatever roles I fill, from producer to writer to designer. So
any roles.
Yeah, all the hats. So no, we've been very lucky and fortunate in the last few years that we've been able to work together.
Yeah. Beyond that, I mean, I probably shouldn't even really say, but I've done some minor role contract stuff on a few games.
I mean, you contracted for them. It's totally fine.
Yeah. So not like any sort of creative role, mind you, but still got involved with it.
Yeah. I mean, we were, of course, involved with Turrican.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Which, due to, it was a pandemic season and stuff like that, so it just wasn't like the right project for us. Well. Yeah, but
we did get to do that video for the Taito collection.
Yeah, we worked with Taito on the Darius Cosmic Revelation.
I think it was Cosmic one of those.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was a fun one.
That was a dream come true. So
we didn't actually have that much time to do it.
No, we had a day.
It turned out pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah.
So I had all the material handy for it.
Yeah. So I think just in general, whenever we work together, if I work on a project, I generally involve John and stuff like that. So
where appropriate.
Yeah, where appropriate.
Okay, so yeah. But there's more.
Oh wow,
there's more.
It's a long question.
Is there any chance you'll do a joint video on Arzette?
Yes.
The M League live stream with Arzette with Dopley was terrific.
Oh yeah, that was before launch.
That was good.
Yeah,
I did catch up on that.
Yeah.
At some point, I would like to do a video with both of you guys. And just talking about sort of a decompression video.
Yeah, post-mortem if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of technical things to share about it that I think surprise people, and just our philosophy of designing it.
Exactly.
There is a physical collection edition coming out, which has a design book, which has comments and text from John and I. It's kind of like a developer's handbook.
Spoilers, I'm in the middle of writing my stuff for that right now. Or like as of today.
Yeah. So if you pick up the Arzette collection edition, then you get it there as well. But we will be doing videos for it, obviously. It's just at some point, it's a tricky one because we can't just put it on the channel willy-nilly, because it's kind of like conflict of interest.
A little like we can't cover it in the traditional sense, but we can talk about it.
We can stream it and talk about it.
We got to work on this thing, and here's some insight behind it. It's like this is some interesting info, but I mean it is a little bit tricky indeed.
Yeah, but we will be doing. I think a video just like you mentioned with all three of us talking about it, and then also maybe a Patreon Q&A with Seth here just to kind of answer specific questions about it. Some kind of two-part, something like that.
Exactly. But wait, there's more.
Sure.
Tony, he also watched the FF14 DF video and was truly special. Is there any chance for future DF Retro content produced with friends of the show? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And is there any chance for future DF Retro content produced? Wait, any chance Audi could produce one?
Yeah, I mean,
I would like that.
Yeah,
again,
I'm coming back. I'm coming back. Don't worry.
It's tough though because your job does take up a lot of time, and as you remember from some of those episodes,
they took a lot of time.
Big DF Retros, it's a lot of effort.
At least now my schedule is becoming a normal work schedule, and that's exactly what we wanted and needed. So this year, I'm very optimistic. I think DF Retro is going to come back in a great way. And we are working on one that I've been working extensively on that is kind of
Yeah, you've been doing lots of capture for a big one.
Which I will probably help produce and edit a lot of.
I mean, this will be more like when you did all the writing and helped a lot with the Star Wars one. We did
F-Zero, Star Wars.
F-Zero I think was kind of split.
It's split, yeah.
I think Super Star Wars was pretty much like almost all you.
Yeah, that's true.
On the writing. I did most of the editing. But
yeah, and that was perfect. I mean, that's where we want to go back to. Is kind
that
of
was an awesome
being
episode.
able to trade off.
That worked really well.
Remember, PlayStation was another one where we traded off a lot, and
dude, that was so fun to make. The PlayStation one. I'm nostalgic about. It was so much work, but we had so much fun.
Yeah, but we'll get back to that this year. I think. So far, it's looking very positive for me. So the next
hopefully
one is.
I got to clear the next month or so, and you got GDC, so. Not right away, but we have some things planned. And I also have other things planned with other friends of the show.
Yeah.
Such as, I think, as I announced, Mark Triforce Duddleson and I are going to do the N64 Year 1 video.
Cool. Yeah.
And him being like an insane N64 man.
Yeah.
He's like the perfect choice for that. So we spent a bunch of time capturing that. So yeah, hopefully there'll be lots more coming.
Yeah.
Finally, there's still more, dude. Tony, buddy, you did it. This is like the ultimate question. Finally, the GB episodes where you exchange your favorite games were phenomenal. Yeah, those were good. I'm happy with that. That was a good idea. Any plans for a follow-up video for GBC GBA? Thanks, guys. Keep up the amazing work.
Yes. The idea
we should expand it to all the systems we want.
I love doing that episode.
That was super fun.
Yeah, so I edited those up, and those were really fun because, we have very different favorites. So it's just kind of, and it's fun to see the other person trying to play it rather than the person so familiar with it just kind of race through it. But yeah, I would love to do more than just handhelds for that. And did those? I mean, obviously they got out because Tony saw them. But I was curious if they ever went public, because I know that we produced quite a lot of content last fall. And there was like the PS Triple Ko No and those two. But I never saw comments about these. So
yeah, that's
need to figure out when those are actually going out to public.
So the DF Retro on the Game Boy stuff. Let me check here. Oh, that didn't even go up at all? Oh, that's weird. I'm actually looking in real time as we go.
Yeah, I was always curious what happened to these episodes.
Okay, so the DF Retro Play Game Boy stuff, that did show up for patrons, but never went public.
Well, yeah.
Interesting.
I thought so.
The same with Ko No.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they're being saved in the tube for something else, and I assume Rich just hasn't thought about it lately.
Yeah.
But hey, it's exclusive bonus for you guys.
And actually, when we talk about Ko No, so the video we're talking about is the PS Triple era remakes. We did a video where we played some rather
The worst.
unfortunate remakes on
From my memory, it's the Double Dragon 2 one.
Double Dragon 2,
That is the
Turtles
worst
Reshelled.
thing.
It only got, I think it released like on Christmas or something like that. So if you want an episode that's considered kind of lost, go into our archives, look for, what's the title of the video in the end? It's like PS Triple Remakes.
I have to check. Actually, I'm gonna do that right now.
Yeah, because I want more. Go watch it and leave us comments in the Discord, because we want people to see the episode. It has
DF Retro play the worst 360, the worst PS3, Xbox 360 Retro remakes, and they aren't pretty.
Yeah. Okay.
Indeed, they are not.
So you got the title there. Go look for it, watch it, give us some comments on it, because we had a lot of fun with that video. Had some small audio issues, unfortunately, but it's a good video.
Oh, right, I remember that.
Yeah,
that was still a funny video.
Yeah, and it just released in a time
Wonder of the Dragons.
Wander of the Dragons, yeah.
Oh, and of course the Double Dragon HD thing.
Yeah.
My God, those sprites. All right, we got to do more of that.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll happen soon. One more question though, and then we'll reach the end. And this, unfortunately, is one I may not be able to answer. It's from 1040 STF again. He says, I know I already asked a question, but if you allow me a second one, I really need advices for fixing the rolling effect on my PVMs, both vertical and horizontal. It doesn't really seem like a one-setting thing, but more of a chain of settings I should toy with. Which ones and in which order? What's the logic I should look for and apply here? I ask that because all the videos or boards I've found about the topic are sadly not really good, helpful, or crystal clear in their explanations. I'm a little confused what he means by rolling effect. Like, my first thought is like, oh, is the whole picture rolling? Like there's like some kind of sync problem or something going on. But anything beyond that, I really can't say. I really need to see what this looks like to understand what the problem is.
Take a picture, post it on the Discord, and tag John.
Ping us in the Discord and tag me, or just send me a message, and maybe I can help. But from that description, I don't really know what's going on, because I can't say I've encountered anything like that. Oh no.
So,
but as I said,
that was like 30 questions.
This took 2 hours, but we did reach the end.
Yeah. So
we answered all the questions, and that
as
was
always, and we always answer
as always.
Questions. Yeah.
Yes,
it
indeed.
was a lot of fun. Great questions. The next Q&A we'll do will probably be Arzette, but do let us know what kind of other small fun retro bits you want on the Patreon side, and as mentioned, John and I will have a little bit more time, luckily this year, to keep the retro tier a little bit more in focus. So do let us know.
And obviously, big things are happening with the business side that we can't get into, but I hope at the end of all of this chaos that's happening in the back, we'll actually be in a better place. That's the plan anyway. But until then, I guess we'll let you guys go, and thank you for joining me, Audie.
Of course.
It's always good to have you back.
Yeah.
Get that smiling face and those luscious locks.
I know. Got the Pliskin look for GDC.
It's real good. It's real good.
Got the mustache.
But that's going to do it from us. So we'll see you next time, and over on the Discord, in fact. So thanks for watching.